All right, well, we'll make a start then. Good evening, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the third seminar on the Internet of Things capstone project. Come on, change screens. There we go. Okay, just a reminder again, all of these meetings are recorded and posted to YouTube, so you can review them if you missed anything, but bear in mind that they are recorded. Hannes, who's just popped in. Okay, so what we'd like to do, as usual, is we'll run through the requirements for the next couple of weeks and just go through what's actually going to be required, and then we'll open up for discussion. Hopefully, we'll have a few questions from our students and see where you're up to with your projects. Time to mention if you haven't received an answer to your email. If you haven't, raise your hand and we'll sort out why or type a comment in. Savash is now our MC. Young Josh has wandered off for a bit of a holiday in Ireland, and he won't be back until towards the end of the course, but you will see him lurking around on the discussion boards in the meantime anyway. So welcome, Savash, in a different role this time. Not only are you our embedded systems guru, you're also our WebEx guru. So looking after all of that. Okay, so we need to have finalised our video presentation at this point. It's due on the 23rd, I think, from memory. We extended it out a little bit. If you're having problems getting that video done in time, please let us know. It is worth a reasonable amount of the overall mark. So we do want to see you actually succeed with it, and it gives us a good opportunity to give you some feedback on how things are progressing, whether your design is within the realms of reality, if there's anything we can do to actually help out. And it'll also help us with the seminars, particularly later on when we don't have a great deal of content within the edX site. We want to be dealing more on a one-on-one type basis with you to help you develop your projects. And by reviewing these videos, it'll give us a really good idea of what you're up to and what you're aiming for, so that we know the sort of things we should be covering in these seminars. Find commonalities, things that are particularly interesting to groups. We're hoping that we'll spend next fortnight on the signal conditioning, some IMUs, and a couple of other aspects that have been coming up in the discussion so far. Okay, so if you haven't received an answer to your email, let us know now and make sure you get those video presentations in. Okay, so I keep losing track because we do 4 of these a week. It all seems this terrible case of deja vu. Anyway, your Canvanizers. Congratulations on the Canvanizers. It was really well done. The average result was 18.6 out of 20, which is really good. We're very, very pleased with the amount of effort people put into and it's for a very good reason. The Canvanizer is going to be the basis for the bit we'll talk about shortly. Thank you. Yeah, it'll be used in creating this report that we'll be talking about very shortly. It should be a living document, so update it and keep it relevant to what you're actually working on. And it will guide you through and document what you're planning and how you're developing your system. So it's a very, very useful tool in the development process. Anything particular on that? No? Okay, I'll try and get through and put some more general comments on the Canvanizer projects up as soon as I get a chance. Do that in the discussion boards, hopefully over the next week, so that you can get some general ideas of the examples that were there. And I hope a few of you posted the links in discussion. I haven't had a chance to check, but you've done some really good work. Should be proud of it. Show it off. Show other people. Help them out with some of the ideas you came up with, and of course borrow ideas from other people. Collaboration is a good thing, as long as you always acknowledge where you get information from that is not directly your work. Okay, so this fortnight, again, keep using the Teams as a sounding board for developing your ideas. The video is due 9 o'clock UTC, I think. Extended to the 23rd, I believe, so a little bit extra time. If you have any issues getting it in on time, just let us know if possible. We've got a few videos there. Again, these are to assist you in the planning and development of your business plans, and are an additional sort of resource. We really do want this seminar and the email contact with us to be the main contributing factor, or the main component of what we're doing together in the development. So watch those and they'll give you a good idea of the funding and costing for your business proposal. Of course, the big bit, we've got to start work or complete the costing report, which will be due in a couple of weeks. Okay, so the costing report itself. Here's the mark breakdown. It's 15% of your overall mark, so a fairly significant amount of the overall mark that you will get for this component of the MicroMasters. At this stage, it's intended for an audience that's really only you and your project advisors. If or when you decide to capitalize on the IoT idea, the audience will actually broaden out a fair bit, and it will make a very, very good basis, if you write it correctly, to put your ideas to third parties such as venture capitalists, other business partners, finances, or the business that you work for if you're putting it to management to develop this system. So it will become a crucial aspect of moving it forward. The breakdown is displayed there. So we've got an industry analysis that you should do, 25%, and I'll give the details on these fairly shortly. Competitor analysis, so you know what you're up against and who's going to be during your process of getting things to market. But also remember that your competitors can be your friend. Even though you may be competing with a larger organisation, in cases you can leverage their platform to produce your edition, and you become a value add to what would normally be a competitor. And that's something worth investigating to see if you can actually fit in that way. And particularly if it's a large competitor or collaborative partner as it becomes, you can leverage their market share, their marketing resources, their brand loyalty and brand reputation to actually increase the market penetration of your device. There's 30% on the product or service description. Again, this can be taken directly from your Canvanizer, and it's to describe your products and service in detail from the marketing perspective. Next is pricing strategy. It's only 10% of the overall mark, but it is crucially important. And I think I mentioned this earlier. There's really two major ways, or two main ways, to approach your pricing strategy. And that is it a philanthropic project, something that's going to be good for society? Therefore, you want to get as many of them out there as you can, to as many people as you can, and the profit is not your major motivation for it. There's a lot of good cases of this. We're dealing with some products that are in subsistence farming in rural third world or developing countries, as we should say. And in these cases, we're not looking at making lots of money from it. We're looking at improving the society and the environment people are in. So you would market something like that in a way that you're covering your costs so that you can stay in business. A small amount on top for product improvement and maintenance. Make sure you allow for your warranty replacements and more of a margin to look at further developments and producing a more updated version later on. And the other way, of course, in broad terms, this sort of strategy, you would be looking at trying to recover all of the investments you've put in. And I do mean all. So you look at the time you've spent in the research and the development, the cost of this course, for example, the cost of materials, the stock that you have to keep, the taxation you have to pay, and a variety of other things, so that you're actually going to have all of your money returned, including the money you put up front. That's tooling, investment in manufacturing, etc., plus a profit margin on top to pay your wages, make a profit, a normal sort of capitalist environment. There are a variety of ways in between those two methodologies, and I'll show you a little diagram of that a bit later on, but it really falls into one of those two sort of main fields of pricing strategy. The final part, and it is critically important, is the SWOT analysis. SWOT is just a acronym for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This type of analysis is key in obtaining funding. Anybody you approach in business to look at funding or to commercialize your device, they're going to want to have a SWOT analysis done as a very first step. And it's a way of analysing what is the possibilities of things going right, what is the possibility of things going wrong, what are the things that influence whether we're going to be successful or not. And we'll have a look further at that fairly shortly. Okay. The idea of this market research and costing plan is to consolidate your own ideas. As I said, it is aimed at you and us as your advisors to give us a better idea of how, from a business perspective, your development is going. Key decisions will need to be made before you can complete this plan, such as what sort of business are you in? Are you going to be a sole trader? Are you going to manufacture this yourself? Are you going to partner with another organisation? And many other things. And that will influence very heavily the business plan that you're coming up. It's also crucially important you know both the industry and the environment in which your business will operate. Excuse me. And we'll cover a bit more on this shortly, but to find out the environment or get some background on the environment, there's a fairly straightforward way of getting started. And that's the traditional, what is now traditional, Google search. Search for products or problems or services that are along the same lines as yours, just using Google or your favorite search engine. And from that, you extract a set of keywords or themes of what is related to your device. You take those keywords particularly, and you use them to search in the more reliable environments for doing basically a literature review or a background search on the environment in which you are going to operate. The nice thing about Google is it is very open. You can get lots of information very quickly, but it is not a reliable source of information. If you look at the way Google structures its search returns, its sponsored advertisements are on top. That doesn't mean it's a correct answer or it's the most logical choice or the best choice for what you're looking for. It's the people who have paid the most money to get it on top. So, like all web services, anyone can put anything up. It doesn't necessarily mean it's correct, but it's a great place to start. If you look at Wikipedia as another example, Wikipedia is also a wonderful place to start, but because anyone can edit it, it's not necessarily a true or reliable reference to use. However, it can give you a very good idea of the environment that you're looking at. So you take keywords from it there, you treat it with a grain of salt, as the old expression goes, which means just use the information, but don't take it as an absolute truth. And then you head off to more reliable sources. So some of these sources are, you can get government statistics normally, then that's mostly free. So you can find out things on census data for populations, age groups, income levels, these sort of things from government websites. You can look at IBIS World Search. I didn't put that in. I'll pop that in the chat, but it's www.ibisworld.com. A very good reference for business patterns. You can talk to or look at the industry associations. IEEE is a good one to look at, but any industry that you're working with. In the aviation area, you could look at the aviation associations and get more reliable information from there. A couple of really good places to start. Patents offices. In Australia, there's IP Australia. You can go and have a look at their patents. Patents give you a great deal of information on what people have done, what work they've completed, and what intellectual property they own. And that is a very, very important thing. You don't want to produce your item, find out somebody's already patented it, try to put it to market, they go and sue you and you lose your house, your home, everything. Patent searches are a very good idea to do anyway. But additionally, they can give you really good ideas of how to approach solving your problem. Patents themselves are very detailed. You can look at exactly what they're proposing, how they're going about their solution to a problem, and use that information if you gain their permission. And in many cases, it'll be a simple licensing. You can develop using that particular patent, but before you go to market, you enter an arrangement with the intellectual property owner for use of that intellectual property. Globally, there's a patent search on Google as well, which is also quite good. Okay, so the report itself. We have created a template for you, and I'll show you that template after we've finished here, but it's very much like these slides. Feel free to use it. You have to use it if you feel like producing your report in a completely different manner. Absolutely acceptable. We're not particularly worried, but make sure that you cover each and every one of these points. So you have something that covers the industry analysis. You have something that covers the competitor analysis. You have something on products and services, etc. Because when we're going through and marking these, because this is what industry tells us they want in proposals, we are going to be looking for how well you address each one of these particular points. Right, so it's key that you do that. But how you lay that out, completely up to you. But we do have this PDF document which is available on edX, and it's editable. You can just fill in the fields if you so desire. If it doesn't suit what you want to do, use your own format, or use part of this and part of your own format. We have no problem with how you put that together. Okay, so on the industry analysis, there are several aspects that we'll be looking for. Analyse it from the political and legal factors that could affect it. Is the industry highly regulated? If you think of the medical industry, there is a very long process to go through to get any medical device approved for use in a health organisation or in a health environment. That's expensive. It's also very time consuming. So this will tie closely into the product costing that you have to do later on. There's also the issue of regulation. Is the political status of the country nice and stable? Whether stable or not may or may not affect your IoT device, but it's something you need to keep in mind. Some of the regulations, and this ties into the economic as well, is the local taxation laws. If you want to sell into a particular market, you'll need to be aware of the legislation and taxation laws that apply to that. For example, in Australia, we have a fairly new been put on things, commonly termed the Netflix tax. It applies a 10% goods and services tax to any product sold coming into Australia. And that may not sound like a big problem because it's 10% you just add on the top. However, you become an unpaid tax collector for the Australian government. And that part of it, the resources involved in actually collecting that tax and monitoring it and then making payment to the Australian government can be quite significant in the overall cost of your device. There are ways around it, by the way. PayPal collected on your behalf, but they then take 5 to 7% of your sale price anyway. So that's another thing you need to be able to factor in. The political situation, again, important for other aspects. I've been using the example of if you were creating a IoT service for tourism, and one of the countries you were covering was Sri Lanka. There was, and I think still is, a law in effect over there that you are not allowed to take government buildings. So you would need to be aware that if you are showing images, you need to remove any of those images that show government buildings, or you could end up in jail. All right, so awareness of the local conditions is critically important to the success of your device. Other economic factors is the exchange rates, levels of inflation. Hyperinflation can cause all kinds of problems. If you're selling things at a lower cost and the price goes up due to inflation, it can affect your profit margins. Availability of labour where you're manufacturing. Fairly obvious, but economic is very important. The social aspects, what sort of social and cultural factors could affect the business? Probably the key one in here would be the population numbers and demographics. So is it a young population? Does that then suit your device? If you're working, say, in the home automation and home monitoring market, having an elderly population that is reasonably wealthy is something that's really good for your device, because it helps people remain in home living situations. That reduces the cost of government, makes the individuals who are living at home much happier. Can have a very positive thing if you've got an aging population. An aging population may not be very good for something that is a very high-tech type application, which is only going to appeal to young people. Do people have the money to buy your product? A survival or health type issue, maybe they do. But if it's something that you're developing that's makes use of disposable income, for example, you'd want to make sure that the market actually has a good population with a disposable income. So lots of things that you can look at in the social. Technology, fairly advancements are going to affect your device. If something changes in the way access is available, things become much faster, and you're working on a device that made use of low bandwidth and was its main selling point, but internet access becomes much better. There may not be any use for your device, or you need to have a roadmap to keep pace with the changes that are happening. And of course, the industry itself. What are the future trends in that particular industry? What are the barriers for you entering that industry? And there's a lot of barriers that can exist that you need to be aware of and try to overcome. So some examples of that would be reputation. If you are trying to get into the mobile phone business and you've developed this wonderful new mobile phone, how are you going to break into the market? Apple has a very, very strong brand reputation, a great deal of customer loyalty, and people found it very hard to get into the mobile phone market, even big companies like Samsung, LG, Oppo, etc. That is always possible, but it takes time, or you need to piggyback on the back of those companies. So there's a lot of companies that make add-ons for different types of mobile phones that plug into them and act as 3D cameras or blood sugar level detectors, all kinds of things like that, with what would normally be your industry competitors. And that's a good way to go if you can do it. But I will cover a little bit more on that in a sec, in fact, which is right here. There we go. Okay, so the next section is the competitor analysis, and this, as I said, is absolutely crucial. You need to know what you're up against. How strong is that competitor? One of the things they can do to you if they are a fairly large company is price you out of the market. So they can have a competing device that they sell at a loss because they have other income streams. Other income streams, they lose money on this one. They can still stay in business because they're making money on something else, but you only have your one little product. And you can't survive if you're selling it at a loss. So they'll do what Microsoft did to Netscape, and they will give away and saturate the market with their product in the hope that eventually you'll go bust and they can then start charging whatever they like. So it's really important that you know that. It's extremely important you know what you're up against with the ability of somebody to price you out of the market. The established date, if they're a long-term market leader, then you're going to have significant problems breaking into that market. You'll need to describe what their product is and looking at it both its good and bad points. Look at the percentage of market share. If they hold 100% of the market, they hold 100% of the market. Is it because they're the only one out there, or is it because they are really, really good at what they do? And again, this will have to influence how you market your product against them. Is it a value add to their product? Is it much cheaper? And you will need to have that in the value to customers. What is unique about your product? Always look at the strengths of a company because that is what you're going to be up against, and that's what they will be selling their product on. But of course, look for the weaknesses as well. So what are their main weaknesses? We can use Microsoft as the example again for that one. The strengths of Microsoft operating systems is it's nice and easy to use. It's pretty much standard and everyone uses it. But its weakness traditionally was not very scalable, and it's not as stable as its competitors. So it will crash and burn every now and again. So you market your product based on those strengths and looking at the weaknesses. Okay, so if you have something that is compatible with the Microsoft operating system, you can play on their strengths. However, if it makes it more stable than the Windows operating system, you can also play on their weaknesses, and that will help you in the market. Okay, as I said, there's... Oh, sorry, I've always skipped this bit. There's a description of the products and services you need to do. It's a fairly significant part of the report that you're writing, and that's describing your products and service, the unique value proposition that you're putting forward. And again, this comes from your Canvanizer report that you've already done, comparing yourself to the competitors and the benefits of your solution. So there's a section there on that. Not much to say on it because it's fairly straightforward, and it's from the Canvanizer. Yep. Okay, now, as I mentioned, there's really two major areas of the pricing strategy. However, I found this particular site, which is linked here. We will share that link, but it's on the screen at the moment. And it gives a range of ways of working out what your pricing strategy should be in a bit more detail. The webpage is really brief, but it does give you a good idea of other methods of setting your price. And I would recommend you go and have a look at that. I think I talked enough on the two main ways we look at pricing, philanthropic or maximising profit. Okay, so the last bit we need to do on the report is our SWOT analysis. And as I said, this is critically important and something that, again, you will try and keep up to date, but is critically important when you approach business people or management to try and get financing or resources to actually run your development. As I said, it's a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And there's an example one up here. It's dealing with something on a phone platform. But you have to be very realistic about it. It'll help you work out your business needs, and every single person you approach with your business idea will want initially, before they see anything else, a SWOT analysis on your idea. So this is worth spending a little bit of time and thought on. It doesn't have to be long. It does need to be well thought out and very realistic. What are the real threats? What are the real opportunities? Where are you aiming to get this? And it helps also focus you on how you should be developing and how you should be looking at your market trends. Okay, so this is all available to you on edX. There is the, excuse me, there is the PDF, which I shall bring up now. I'll just get out of here. And can you see that, Sebash? Presentation template?
Yes. I think it just disappeared. I can see the actual presentation.
It's probably because I'm sharing a presentation rather than share content, and I want to share Adobe Acrobat. Try that one. How's that?
Yep, all good.
Okay, so this is the template we made for you. As I said, all the marks are... Oh, sorry, that's the wrong template. I'm sorry about that. I'll use the Word one that I had earlier. The one you have is a PDF one, and it's like this, and it will have editable fields. So it's all laid out in the way we need to see it. But as I mentioned, you're free to reformat this in any way you like. There's the IBIS World link, and I'll share that one in a minute. So you can go off and have a look at the information that's available from that. And there's examples in here of the kind of things we would be expecting. It's not in the Word document, but it's in the PDF. Okay, so you can use this, or you can not use this and do your own. So let me just get the IBIS one back up. While I'm doing that, please start thinking about what questions you would like to ask. Stop sharing. To the page, WebEx. Here we go. We're looking at, we're going to look at actually, what do I call it? Micro. Okay, well, just pick microscope manufacturing. We'll do it for a start. There we go. And this will have microscope manufacturing in the US and give us lots of information, useful information on there. Okay, how's the industry trending? Okay, that was a bad example. Let me look at another one.
In the meantime, if you hover your mouse over your name, you'll see that raise the hand button if you wanted to ask a question, or if you rather type it in the chat, and I'll read it out loud.
Okay, so here we can see the microcontroller industry in the US. Currently, it's 55 billion and rising. There's 884 businesses in it. Annual growth is 1.8%. 100,000 people employed, and If we wanted to, we could actually buy the report, but we're not going to do that. And here we go. You've got a spot for it. Okay, so this is a good place to start, and then you can wander off and look at the jargon, so we can pick up different terms to do our search on in the patents, etc. Okay, we've got a hand up there, Savash.
You're unmuted, Peter. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I have a question. It's about the video presentation. Sorry, I know that the subject is different, but because it's still due, just wanted to ask whether we are allowed to add certain small, let's say, text to the presentation, to the videos, to make it more appealing, or does it have to be a plain video without any additions?
It's completely up to you. To make it a little bit entertaining or more interesting, please do so. It really is something that good to get practice with to engage with the audience. So the reason we wanted a video presentation is to assist in the practice of presenting your ideas in an oral manner. So being able to talk to people and present your ideas in a short, succinct period of time. So please add whatever you like. We don't want plain necessarily. It's up to you completely, but the nicer it is, the better you'll score, because it is trying to get you to idea as well.
Okay, thanks, Ian.
No worries. Okay, so how are we going with other things? Anyone else got direct questions?
Please feel free to use the raise hand button or type in the chat.
Have people decided on platforms that they're going to be using to develop their prototypes? Which one were we talking about this morning? The STM?
I wasn't there this morning.
You were there this morning. Okay, so I can't remember. Anyone's chosen anything out of the ordinary or different, and why they would choose something different? There's usually very good reason. Can be just familiarity, or perhaps it's got some interesting little features that other people may be interested in. I was actually playing with these ones. Let's see if I can find it. Remember what it is.
While you bring that up, we have Aditya saying, I have tried computer vision technology on batteries, but not getting result. It only predicts as a cylinder, thin aluminium. I think he was working on curating
smart thin. Yeah. The battery detection is going to be difficult. If you're not having any luck with it, treat it as if you can identify it but not separate it from other recyclables such as metal, then just treat it as metal and put it aside for so using shape is probably pretty good. Any sort of cylinder that's smaller than 75mm long and 15mm diameter is probably a battery. However, that won't get the large rechargeable batteries such as ones out of laptops. Another possible way is to look at the physical size of the device and look at its weight. So a very dense material, a battery, and you can separate that off for manual processing.
He was also wondering if there any research done at Curtin that we could share with him.
Yes, there is. I'll have to try and dig it up. So send an email through to remind me. It was... so I'll look that up, and it was looking at the electromagnetic field from batteries. The problem was once they were fully discharged, as in 100% flat, which most batteries aren't fully discharged, it couldn't pick them up. Did I mention to you looking at using magnometers? So I think that's something we could actually try. In fact, in your copious amounts of free time, Ash,
yes.
one of the IMUs, just get one of the IMUs and do a raw from it. It's got a
Okay.
magnetometer in, and just run a few batteries past it. So don't set anything up, just a straight read from the IMU.
I see.
We'll run a few batteries past it to see if we can actually pick up any change. So we'll run that one for you over the next few days and just see if anything happens. But we'll also dig out that information on how we picked up the field of not fully discharged batteries.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give that a try. I was actually looking at a video with like trying to it was for calibrating the magnometer, but they were using like the battery's magnetic field to show that it is affecting it. So expect that it would affect the actual magnometer, but
Well, that's what we expect, but we haven't spent enough time trying it out. So I think it's worth us having a quick shot at it sometime in our copious amounts of free time.
of course.
Even better, find one of your students to do it for us.
Of course.
It's not a simple problem. Not at all. And that's why it hasn't been done. It's not a simple problem. So, anyway, I was going to mention this little one. I don't think I had before. It's the Onion series of, well, they're really an IoT computer. And these, unfortunately, I don't have one with me. These are a tiny little thing. I don't know if it's got the measurements here. But the Onion board itself, the small section, is round about 40, 50 millimeters by about 20 millimeters. And it's a standalone, fully operational Linux machine. They're only costing around about $9 Australian each. And they come with the full web service. You can plug them into an Arduino Uno equivalent board. I'm not sure if it's there. Products, and we'll have a look. So that you have your Arduino as the microcontroller and the Onion Amiga doing the actual processing. Let's see, it's not really showing it. But there it is there, and that's the entire size of the package. It's really, really small, reasonably power efficient, open source, and you can just plug it into your own development board. So you can build another board that it just plugs into, which has all your sensors on it. And we've used these in our IoT courses that we've run in Thailand and Myanmar and other places with great success. They're a nice little machine.
I also, so since I think it was 2 weeks ago where we had a quick meeting with one of the guys who was working on the security camera idea for opening the doors. I posted a link in the chat if anyone's interested. I found a little, there is a tiny cam for, that gets paired with ESP32, and it can do some very minimal face recognition stuff in it. So if that's something that interests anyone, it might be worth taking a look. It's pretty cheap if you put things like the camera and the board itself together. Ended up $10 when I bought it, so I'm still waiting for it to get here.
I found that whole lot of lenses as well on here, which you can use this site or any other IoT. But yeah, where are we? There was a whole set of, there we go, lenses specifically for this Arduino camera that you can get, and they are not expensive, as you can see, $15 Australian for these lenses to put on the camera so you can zoom in or have the correct focus on what you're trying to identify. There's a person who was on this morning that's looking at creating a better mousetrap, which is a great idea because everyone's trying to invent a better mousetrap. And he wants to use a camera system to identify that it's a mouse and then take some action to deter the mouse or capture it or do something else. So he'll be doing object recognition of a mouse, therefore he needs a decent camera system.
Question coming. The PDF from DEF CON has about face recognition and train model, and also ANR, Spydron, and
Let me read that. Okay, which one's that? The aluminium. PDF and everything. Oh, right. So where is that PDF?
I can't find it either. He posted a link to the GitHub. Let me see if I can find a PDF.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Yeah, I'll just share that. Oh, that's not one. There we go. This one. Balance detection scout. You want to look at on autopilot. Okay. All right. So there's something there that might help.
And name of the PDF. So the name of the PDF is EROM MOM. It should be there. It uses Tesla for car. Seems like it's a face recognition in Tesla.
Yeah. Balance detection scout. Stop sharing that one. So everyone's progressing reasonably well. Oh, by the way, I've been slowly getting through all of the Kanbanizers myself rather than relying just on the student peer marking. And I'll be posting some general comments and suggestions and pointing out some of the really good bits on the discussion boards over the next, I hope, within a week. As I said, the Kanbanizer should be a living document. Keep going back to it, keep it up to date, because it will help focus on what you're trying to do. But as I said, some of these are really good, very interesting. Have we got any more questions from anyone or general comments?
I'm not seeing any raised hands.
Oh, come on, we're here to help. We're here to talk to you. Ah, there we go. Good, Andreas.
Okay, let me unmute you, Andreas. All right, go ahead, Andreas. You're unmuted, so but unfortunately we are not hearing you. Oh, I think it's trying to connect.
I'm really looking forward to seeing these videos. If they're anything like your Kanbanizers, it'll be very, very interesting. But be patient with us on getting feedback to you. We do have 80 odd of them to go through. It's going to take us a little bit of time. Again, I'm glad Savash has got so much free time that he can.
Yeah, of course.
Help with this. Yeah. Hannes, you had some mentions of the ways of getting the models down to small computers if we're doing the face recognition or face identification. You talked about it a little bit at some point earlier on. Do you recall what that was?
There's a couple of ways to do that. One of the things you do is you try to get feature extraction happening. And then when you've got that feature extraction, that's what you feed into your machine learning. Of course, the machine learning would have to be trained somewhere else, like on the cloud. Other thing that really helps with image recognition and videos is to not try to recognize every frame, but only to take maybe 1 in 5, 1 in 10 frames, or even slow down the frame rate if necessary, because you don't normally need to recognize every single image. You can also use tricks like once you've identified something or think you've identified something, trying to track that between frames to improve your classification effectively, or to pile up multiple frames of classification.
Yeah.
There's a few approaches.
So Ian, we just had a question coming in from Andres. I think he typed it out. I'm just going to read it out. So he says, my project was the device to monitor if power was present to inform a managed service ops center. I could pretend that I wanted to bring it to market, but in reality, I'd be more interested to develop it for internal use to improve my company's service. How would I reflect this in the presentation for this week, or should I be better patent to bring it?
No, it's perfectly all right. If you're building something for an in-house use, it is still basically a commercial production. What you're looking at is the amount of money that you've put in developing it compared to how much it actually costs you not to have it. So a return on investment. Is this going to save money or provide a better service? And that's where your market share is. Is anyone else able to provide this product if it was outsourced? So if you had somebody who could monitor your power internally, what would they charge? What sort of service would they give you? If there isn't anyone that offers that kind of service where you are, that's your business case for doing it. It's just not available, so therefore we've got to build something in-house. So what's the cost of being able to monitor and check the power condition within our environment compared to not monitoring it and having it fail all of a sudden? So a bit along the disaster recovery planning, sorry. So you're not looking at competing with perhaps an external commercial device. You're looking at increasing the efficiency, or so it is still a normal business proposition. It cost you $1 million to save $100, you're not going to do it. So it's really putting it across in that way. What is the cost of the power failure if you're not monitoring it and if you can't do a clean shutdown? So I don't see any major difference, except that you wouldn't be looking so much at the competitors. You'd be looking at the effects if this new way of doing things isn't implemented. This is what it would cost us. Is that the sort of thing you meant?
Yes, he says, thanks for the answer.
We've got some fairly good advantages. I don't think I've got it on my phone anymore, but Curtin develops a lot of little applications for its students. Let's see if I've got it. Cabs. Yep, I do. There is no competitor, and it doesn't necessarily, well, it definitely doesn't provide any service to anyone outside the university. Ask me to do all of that. I'll do it. But it provides a service to our students, which makes them happier, which means they are happier to be, which means they stay being our students and we stay in business. But is it a externally commercially viable application? No. Does it compete with anyone else? No, because it's Curtin students, developed by Curtin, for use only by Curtin students. Is it of value? Absolutely. It makes our students happier. So there is the unique value proposition that we're putting forward, is something to assist students in their mobility around our campus. By the way, our campus is fairly large. I think it's about 5 kilometres from one end to the other end if you count Tech Park. So we do need to have fairly good mapping systems and an autonomous bus, which is there for research. But it's a big place and we needed a mapping system, so it solved that problem for an internal use, which is completely relevant as a IoT device, because it not only tells the students where they need to be, it can link into the, that's actually Elsie, it can link into the class schedule, tell students where they're meant to be, how to get to that particular lecture theatre, let them know that this food truck is over here on the left if you're hungry on the way past, and it happens to be lunchtime. It can possibly, it doesn't yet, but it could look at things like weather and so tell you, don't forget to take your umbrella with you today. And as I said, it's a really good idea that's very much viable, but it's not competing with any external market. However, to get the funding to put the resources into doing that, you would have to do the same cost-benefit analysis, the same pricing plan for the organisation to show that there is a benefit in spending the money on it. Commercial or not, that's irrelevant. You still have to go through the same process. I've still got 10 minutes left. Just a heads up, we're going to be having Savash run everything next week, which is not the week you're here. But to keep things similar, we will ask Savash, if he doesn't mind, to lead the next one, and I'll be the MC. And Savash is going to talk to us a little bit about IMUs and signal conditioning for sensors in general. So this is to try and help you work out how to get sensible readings from your devices using the IMUs as a fairly complex but very, very useful example. IMUs are my favourite sensor at the moment because we can do so much with them. And they're really, really cheap. So that's the inertial measurement units, accelerometer, gyro, and magnometer, all in one neat little package. So looking forward to that, Savash.
All right, sure. I'll prepare that for next time around.
Yeah, I'll give you a hand with it.
All right.
But the signal conditioning is something that's really, really important. Taking noise out of a sensor system is critical to getting reliable readings. And every environment has noise induced. So, for example, we look at using an IMU on a person's leg to see how they're walking. We're really only looking at the lower 12 hertz of the signal, 12 cycles per second. If you can't remember that, I think we covered it back in the electronics IoT2. So what we need to do is filter out anything above that frequency. And that process is much more reliable to get our information out. So things, we'll have a quick look at maybe low pass filters just to take noise out.
Okay, sure.
I'm hoping at this point.
I was just going to say, and I can actually run through the setup that I'm using at the moment and the way I'm capturing the data and then how I'm processing it. That could be of interest to some people. What would be a setup that we're currently using?
I think it's going to be interesting for everyone because reading a sensor and conditioning the signal so that it's usable is a critical part of talking to the real world. You know, we need to find out what's happening out there, so we use our sensors, and we want to take some action on that, so we use our actuators to do so. And we have to condition both the signals coming in and the signals we're putting out so that they're at the right levels, the right frequency, as noise-free as we can make them. Okay, so I've still got 5 minutes. If anyone has anything they would like to raise, any questions they have, if you're stuck on anything and you're not environment, email. If it's a really complex problem, we'll sort out a Skype chat. And yes, we've got.
Okay, we have a question coming from Voicing. I just unmuted you. Go ahead, please.
Hi, everyone. I have found out a few days ago that a startup has developed a very similar product to the one I wish to develop. So how should I go about this? Should I try to implement some new features to differentiate myself? Or should I just ignore it since it's a very small company and they're not getting much attraction, seems like?
Okay, that's probably an ideal situation because, number one, somebody else has seen the market you've seen. So you're not alone, therefore there is probably a good market out there for it. I'd look very closely at what they're offering and try and differentiate yours from theirs and see why somebody would choose yours rather than theirs, and do a really close critical analysis of why they're succeeding or not succeeding. And if they're not getting much traction, they must be doing something not quite correct. So you can use them as an example of what not to do and try and look at to see how you can improve on it. If it's very, very close to the same idea, commercially, yes, it may be difficult, but for the sake of the course, it's not really a problem because this is an exercise in how you go through the design process. And this device that you're working on now may not be the one you end up truly commercializing if you commercialize anything. So I wouldn't worry too much if it's identical, but I would definitely make use of what they've published, what they say they're trying to do, how far have they got, what feedback do they have, why aren't they getting traction, and a lot of the work will be done just by looking at that one company.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Thanks. I'll try to dig up a bit company.
Yeah, if you like, send me an email on them and I'll see what else I can find from our resources.
All right, sure. I'll do that. Thank you.
Okay. Here we go. Wow, I wasn't alone. This is good. It's all a bit of a worry. You think, well, I think this is a wonderful idea. Why has nobody else done it?
Actually, an interesting case study of this exact situation could be something similar happened in sort of an entertainment area. So if anyone's into video games, there was so the Nintendo Switch system. It has a function of you can play portably or you can display the device on your TV. So the thing is, the official dock, like the HDMI dock that comes with the device, it's a bit bulky. So a couple of companies saw the opportunity to kind of build a very small internal of a dock, so it becomes more portable. And there were two competing companies that pretty much the exact same thing, the exact same idea, and the shape was similar. One of them launched their campaign on Kickstarter. The other team launched their campaign on Indiegogo, and it's about kind of marketing it. It was an interesting thing to look at. I'll post a link to it. Interested, would be an interesting thing to look at to see how differently they can ended up marketing the product. And like interestingly enough, the product that worked much better ended up not getting much attraction because other company ended up using the market, and they sent out a bunch of engineering samples to YouTubers and influencers. So then lots of people through social media ended up seeing their version, and then the other version kind of got lost. So might be an interesting case study.
Okay, well, if there's no other questions, we'll close off for tonight, but feel free to email us. We'll be trying to spend a bit more time in the discussion boards over the next few weeks to try and point things along. Some interesting we find from the things that you're discussing, so that's actually relevant to you, and join in the teams a little bit more, because that's where we really want to head with this, is getting those prototypes up and running once the business plans are done. Okay, thank you all for joining us. We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time, where Savash will be talking about many things.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Look forward to seeing all your videos.